Welcome to Screw the Commute, the entrepreneurial podcast dedicated to getting you out of the car and into the money. With your host, lifelong entrepreneur and multimillionaire, Tom Antion.
Hey everybody, it's Tom here with episode 680 of Screw the Commute podcast. I'm here with Derrick Rozdeba, and he is an author of a book that is going to be very interesting to you. I think he hails from Canada, and he's going to talk about branding issues. And a lot of you have heard me rag against branding, and so we're going to throw that around a little bit, see his perspective on it. Now, I hope you didn't miss episode 678. Was my first 28 days on TikTok, and you will hear me talking to you now, which means that people from TikTok didn't kidnap me into child slavery, and as far as I know, they haven't stolen my identity. So I'm going to take advantage of their service regardless. I still got a lot to learn, and one of my videos went 40,400 views, and so you can really make some fast progress if you do what you're supposed to do on TikTok. All right, and I want to thank the folks from Patreon. We started a Patreon account to help fund my scholarship program for persons with disabilities. I'm not taking any money for myself. It starts as little as $3 a month that you can support this program. We have 3 people in it, and they are just beautiful people making great progress. 2 of them are blind, shooting better videos than I do. So thanks you so much for that. You can check that out at screwthecommute.com/Patreon. And usually that's to help fund creators. Well, on training episodes alone, I have 300 plus episodes at screwthecommute.com/training. And the rest, the other 300 or so, or 370 are interviews with great folks like Derrick. Check that out, screwthecommute.com/Patreon. You'll be doing some really great things for some people in need. All right, let's get to the main event. We've got Kim Derrick Rozdeba is an author, a blogger, and a branding guru, and he's guided some of the Fortune 500's oldest and most iconic brands, and he has over 3 decades of strategic planning, branding, and executing multi-million-dollar advertising and marketing campaigns, PR and corporate communications in agriculture, pharmaceutical, petroleum, airline, telecommunication, and automotive industries. And he's got a book called Branding Queens. And, you know, me as a jokester could make some jokes about that one, but I think I'll hold them back for a little while. But anyway, it's about women who built large brands, and he loves to do a lot of things we'll get into as we talk to him. So, Kim, are you ready to screw the commute?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Right.
I'm sitting here in my home office, so I'm good.
Awesome. Yeah. So now you're from Canada, right?
That's correct. I'm in Calgary, Alberta, just near the Rocky Mountains, and it's close to 0 Fahrenheit here today.
Yikes. Yeah, good for you. You can have all of that. You can have all the snow, everything. I'm not really welcome in Canada. I don't know if you knew that. The first time I ever got a speaking engagement up there was years and years ago, and I get to the border, and they say, well, what are you doing up here? And I'm all beating my chest proud. Oh, I'm speaking. Oh, you getting paid? Oh yeah, I'm getting paid. Oh, is that right? Well, come on over here to our we want to talk to you because I didn't have a work permit.
Actually, I did listen to that
Yeah.
podcast, and I did chuckle because I've heard a number of people have run into that same problem.
Oh man, I had to bribe my way to get and missed my limo, and the meeting planners telling me you should have just lied. Yeah, all right, I'm going to lie to the customs agents. Yeah, that's perfect. I'd still be in chains up there somewhere. So, but I did love it up there. There was a U.S. comedian, what's her name? I forget her name, but she said, Canada's really great. It's kind of like the attic to the United States. It's, there's a lot of cool stuff up there, but you kind of forget it's there.
Yeah.
So great to have you on. We met, I think, through Podmatch, and I definitely wanted your perspective on things because, I made my way without branding, basically. I guess people branded me maybe, and that, I guess that can happen to people if they don't pay attention to what you teach. and worked out good for me, but sometimes it goes the other way. So,
Yeah.
so tell us about how you came up through the system before we get into your current stuff, because we always love to hear people's um, trek through life. So, you've had a lot of jobs, right? And that's kind of a dirty word around here, but tell us how you came up through the ranks.
Yeah, so I started off, sort of in a traditional sales environment many, many years ago. I was in Toronto, and I was working as a sales rep for an oil company at the time. I had a number of service stations that I worked with, and I actually kind of noticed that marketing was kind of cool. And I wanted to get into marketing, and I got into marketing, got into sales promotions as well, advertising. And I determined this was where I wanted to go. So I actually quit working for the company I was working for, and I went to agency, an advertising agency. And I was in the agency business for about 15 years, worked for large agencies as well as small agencies. What I learned was the number of different companies and industries, because you can't just work on one, particularly when you're working with small agencies. You got to work with a number of different clients that are out there, and all different problems, and it's all to do with communications. So I started getting into the whole brand idea many years ago. Ogilvy, Mather, I worked for them for a number of years. David Ogilvy was a huge fan of branding. So I just over time have taken on wanting to learn more, because every day there's something new that I learn. I can't say that I know it all. I wish I did. But the world keeps changing. And you talk about your brand, or you owning the brand. The brand actually is owned by your customer.
Okay.
It's theirs. It's their perception. It's their impression of what you are offering them. So you can guide it. Absolutely. You can feed them what you want. But at the end of the day, it's their impression. It's their emotional connection they have with your brand.
Yeah. Now, if you've listened to some episodes, and we talked about before the show that one of my catchphrases is people brand themselves into the poorhouse. I mean, I've had actually people, because I'm an internet guy, they come to me and they say, Tom, I want my brochure and my press kit to match the exact color, PMS color of my web page. And I'm thinking, you go down to Best Buy. I don't know if you have Best Buy up there.
Yeah, yeah, we do.
Line up 10 different laptops and look at your website on them, and it's going to be a different color on every one of them. So they waste a lot of money on stuff that just doesn't matter. It matters taking care of customers and getting cash flow, especially when you're small. It's a different thing if you're Coca-Cola or Bear.
Yeah, well, it is and it isn't, because it's what the impact that you're making. And if you can make a big impact with a small investment, go for it. But that impact has to be consistent over time. If you keep giving different impacts, different impressions of what your brand is, you are going to confuse your customer. So it's pick the right things, pick the things that will be noticed, not necessarily everything, because you can't do everything and it's too costly. The women in my book, you haven't mentioned my book, but I just recently wrote a book, is 20 women who started with absolutely nothing. And I'm sure your listeners can understand this. When you start with nothing, your most important element is selling your product. And branding, that's the last thing you're thinking
you gotta
about,
pay
right?
the bills, right?
Absolutely. But eventually, as you said, there is a brand, and the brand actually is something that your customers are walking away with. And whether you've done it intentionally or unintentionally, it's that impression. I heard, I'm trying to remember who was this, it's the aftertaste of, I like to think of aftertaste of really good wine, but it is that impression that you leave with your customers. So you can either be organic and allow the customer to come up with it. You have done something to create that impression. It's like a personality. Like when you walk into a room, And I'm sure when you walk into the room, people notice you. And why do they notice you? It's because your personality. So that's part of your brand.
Well, how do people, what I'm worried about is that people spend, again, in the beginning, too much time on worrying about that and not just taking care of customers, because
Yeah.
if you don't take care of the customers, you're never going to make it to the point where you're going to have a brand.
Right.
And that's the kind of customer service stuff more than, and good products and services more than branding, wouldn't it be?
Yeah. So when I wrote this book, I had to come up with some sort of nomenclature for people to understand where were these women, what were they doing to create a brand. So I came up with the 5 C's of branding, and I'd say the 5 C's quite quickly is commitment, customer, construct, content, and consistency. And I would say the two most important ones you need to understand right at the beginning, and you intuitively do it. And the first one is the commitment. What is it that you're promising? What is it that you're delivering? What is your vision? What is your why? And that one is critical, because if you don't know where you're going, nor does your customer. The second one that becomes really important is your community, and your community is your target audience, and understanding what their needs are. So there's that, what you want and what they want, and then there's that sweet spot in the middle, right?
Okay.
And then the other one is consistency, and this is the one you just touched on: the consistency of delivering the quality that they're expecting, and continually, ratcheting up that experience, because of course, as time goes on, expectations keep rising. So it's really important that you're always listening to your customers and also responding appropriately, to give them the services or the product that they're looking for.
All right. So I got lost here. Commitment, community, customer service, construct,
Yeah.
I
So
didn't really understand, and consistency.
okay. So let me walk through them
Okay.
quickly. So commitment, as I said, that's the promise.
Mhm.
That is your promise that you're giving to your customer. Construct is the brand identity. So it's all of the logo, it's the colors that you mentioned, it's the personality attached to the brand. The community is your target audience. It's your employees, it's your stakeholders. It is the people in your community that you've got some advocates possibly out there that are associates that are part of your community. The next one is your content, and content is really this whole idea of marketing, where marketing fits in. All of those tools of communication, to get your message out, which is just one piece. A lot of people think, marketing is branding. Well, it is, but it's only one piece of branding. And then the final one is consistency. And this is the one that I think a lot of companies kind of miss on, because it's the after fact, it's the measurements, it's the data, it's the feedback process, it's the how many complaints are you getting and why, what kind of complaints are you getting. It's also the ability to ensure that you're ahead of the game. What's the competition doing? What's the trends? So the consistency one, and again, it's also quality control. And making sure that every time your customer is receiving whatever the service is or the product, they're getting the same thing that they got last time. I mean, that's the Coca-Cola magic. Every time you open one of those bottles, you're going to get the exact same product.
I think they're cheating and giving McDonald's more sugar, though. It tastes
Be.
different
Could
at
be.
McDonald's. But yeah, consistency. People, people, when they ask me all the time on podcast interviews, what's your keys to success? I'm consistent and persistent. Well, I'm persistent, but I'm
Yes.
consistent. You know what to expect. People in the short attention span world are too easy to try something and then quit before
Yeah.
it even had a chance to work. And then the customer's doubly confused. Well, last week you told me this. So now we kicked a little bit about before we got on here about the difference between personal branding and business branding, and we
Yeah.
were kind of aligned there. Tell them about that.
So I love it. Brands are trying to become more human, and for some reason, humans are trying to become more like brands,
That's good.
right?
That's good.
And I puzzle. I mean, sure, there's a huge market out there for it's the I think the latest greatest. I don't know how many books are out there about personal branding, and so I question the value of this. To me, I would spend more time on a good resume and a good introductory letter than I would of trying to brand myself. I mean, brands aren't real; they're not human. So to put yourself, and one of the women in the book, I'll just tell you a bit of the book that I just wrote. One of the women that were in the book was Queen Elizabeth II, and she was a personal brand. And the reason she's in there is that she wasn't a person to all of us. I mean, she came across as a queen, and she was consistent throughout her reign, but you knew the way she was going to respond. You knew what you were going to get from her because that was the face that she put on every day. She put that same face on. We don't know about her in her personal life. No. So do we all want to be like that? I don't think so. Do you have to when you've got a service? Sure, you can try and make yourself look different, differentiate yourself from your competition. That's why the commitment becomes really important of understanding what is it that you're offering that's different than anybody else.
Well, this time I mentioned I've been the last 6 weeks or so concentrating on TikTok,
Yeah.
and there,
I've been listening to your pod. Congratulations on the 40,000 views. I mean,
yeah.
that's incredible.
But a lot of the people on there would dispute you vehemently, the young ones, that is, because a person that looks great in a bikini that can't even spell, probably in some cases, uh, becomes a brand with 1 million followers or 10 million followers, and people are throwing money at them like crazy. so, so I guess they would be considered a personal brand, their name or
I
their image or what?
so I think they're just becoming famous.
And that's different than being a brand.
To a degree, yes, because to be a brand, there's some consistency. Again, back to the word consistency and understanding your commitment of what is it that you're going to deliver every time, and you're not going to disappoint your customer. There's famous people, there's musicians, there's actors. They get into their genre. They get into it's an evolution for them. But once they get stuck in something, that's what their customer wants. Try to there's some singers that have tried to deviate and go on to something else. Some have succeeded, some haven't, because their customer expectation is this. So you do eventually become a brand, but just because you're famous and you're popular doesn't mean that you're a brand.
Got it. So more about the book. So how many queens do you have in the book? I'm a kind of a comic, and I hear that. So how
So
did you
there's
now, did you interview any of these people, or did you just research them?
I just researched them.
Mm.
So it
Well,
goes
some
back
were
to eight.
you were weren't even born, but when they were dead, right?
Yes, yeah, it goes back to 1810 was the first brand, which was Barb Nicole Clicquot. So I researched them all. I did try to contact them all. I did call the Queen a couple of times. I spoke to somebody at Buckingham Palace. Very nice people, but I got nowhere. And this was, of course, before she passed away. So I because I couldn't get a hold of anybody directly, I wanted to keep it consistent. So I used all of this, all of that's in the book is all through the research. But there's 20 women that go right up to
These are all
current day.
Canadian women?
Nope, these are women from around the world. There's two
Okay.
from France, two from the UK. I can give you sort of a sense of who these women are. Anna Bissell, the Bissell vacuum cleaner
Mm-hmm.
company. Madam C.J. Walker, first millionaire Black woman in the United States. Elizabeth Arden. Elizabeth Arden was a Canadian. She was born in Canada. Coco Chanel out of France. Margaret Rudkin, maybe not so well known. Pepperidge Farms,
Mm-hmm.
the fishy crackers, the
Mm-hmm.
goldfish crackers. That's one of hers. Olive Ann Beach, Beach Aircraft, a really interesting woman running a aircraft manufacturing company.
Okay.
Uh,
Yeah, that's a new one on me. I was a charter pilot for a while.
yeah,
Uh, so, uh,
and so
um,
Beach
yeah,
Aircraft. I
of
mean,
course.
they're
Yeah,
incredible
I
planes.
flew many hours in those.
Yeah. Uh, and one of their secrets, of course, why they were so loved by their customers is they kept the equipment simple, so that you didn't have to be a scientist to be able to
Mhm.
to drive one of their planes. Just,
I thought you said earlier all of these women started with nothing. Is that
yeah,
true? They
yeah,
weren't silver spoon kids?
no,
All of
no,
them started with virtually nothing.
pretty much all of them. There was a
Okay.
couple. There was a couple that had, again, capital was a huge problem. Starting off with, I mean, go back 48 years ago, a woman wasn't even able to open up a bank account by
Right.
herself. That was only 48 years ago. So while there were some men involved, some of them had husbands, some of them had husbands. They had business together. They passed away. They could have sold the business. They could have got out of the business. V. Clicquot, the champagne, Barbara Nicole, she started with her husband. He passed away quite suddenly, very young. She didn't have to continue on. She could have given the business up to another family member, to her father-in-law, possibly, but she didn't. So these are women who persevered, but they started literally no education in a lot of cases, no experience in a lot of cases, and they started from ground zero. They were the ones that wrote the copy for their ads, if they had to do ads. They're the ones that came up with the product. They're the ones that came up with the packaging and to figure out how they're going to do it. So they started real small, absolutely like every entrepreneur does. But then they went from there to mass production to a global organization.
Amazing. That's amazing. So, what do you think from all your research and that you've done with folks? What do you think are the mistakes that small business owners make when in with regard to branding?
Good. Oh, that's a good question. I think some of them possibly want it all. What I mean by want it all is they don't want to sell one customer at a time. They see the big picture, and again, in today's world, ramping up and scalability becomes really important with the technology and with the internet that we have today. But I saw most of these women start with one customer at a time, and it's a slow process. And that slow process allows them to make the mistakes at the beginning, so they don't make big mistakes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if you make a
And
mistake with one or two people, you can fix it before you put
right,
it in front of 10,000 people.
you got it completely. So they learned, and they had to learn. These were quite a few of these women. Again, they didn't have a formal education. They didn't have a university degree. That was for sure. And again,
Well, at least
you
they
know,
had Google. Oh, well, no, sorry.
some of them, of all of these, there's only 5 of them that are still alive today. So this is
Did you send them a
quite a few of
copy of
these
the
going
book?
back. The ones that are today, yes, or family members.
Great.
I have been able to contact some. Oprah Winfrey is in the book. I did contact her company. I never did speak to her directly, but I did talk to her company. They're aware of this book.
Wow. How about Meghan Markle? I don't know if she's going to be in
She's not in the book.
it. So, oh man. So, Where do they find it? Is this in different formats, hardcover,
Yeah,
softcover, Kindle? What different
all
formats is it?
all of them. So you can buy it hardcover, softcover. You can buy it digital. You can buy it on Amazon, any book store or a retailer that you like supporting.
Can they get
You
it
can go.
autographed?
You can get it autographed, I guess, if you send me an email, and
There,
I can send it to you.
there you go.
You can.
What's your
I don't-
website?
My website is www.rozdeba.com.
You couldn't get branding queens?
I could. I looked at it and go, Brandy Queen's just one of maybe many books. So I don't need one just for one book.
Yeah, but I wonder, is there going to be a part 2 of this?
Well, I think the part 2 is really focusing on the 5 C's that I mentioned to you. What I found when I did the first book, I had a lot of branding information and education in the book, and what my beta readers quickly told me was they love the stories of these 20 women. I keep saying their stories is just as big as their brands, because fascinating. These are fascinating women that persevered during difficult times, and they struggled. It wasn't easy, and they only had one person that they could listen to, and that was themselves. And because everyone else said they were crazy. So okay, Queen Elizabeth, maybe not. She was put into a job, in her 20s, but she made it what it was. She defined what that brand was going to be. Nobody else did.
All right, who's your favorite?
I like them all. I mean, there's a couple, the ones that had a sense of humor, and I'm going to go to Olive Ann Beach. There's a Beach Blue, which is famous, and it still exists today. They just came up with one of their new planes. It was a anniversary, and it had Beach Blue, and it's a color that was her favorite color. She had every year she got a new car. She got a Cadillac, and the company that she worked with also bought planes from her, and they said, we will buy 10 planes, but we don't want any beach logos on the plane. And she goes, okay, fine. Well, I don't know if you've noticed, if you've ever been in a beach aircraft, there's a lot of beach logos all over the plane. All the dials, everything's got friggin', they're all over the place. So she had them all removed. The next time she went and got her Cadillac, she said, and she would get it custom made, blue, her Beach Blue. And she said, I don't want any Cadillac logos on my cars.
That is good.
One other story from her, because just to give her personality. She had a flag. We see flags in airports, right? So she had a flag outside her office, and the flag would change each day. And there was a flag that was sunny and bright, nice. Walk in, it's going to be sunny inside. And then she had ones that were, sort of, again, like on a beach when you see, the waves coming in, crashing in, you got the red one. There was one with the stormy skies, and you came in, but beware.
Yeah, I think I would love her. Yeah. So, well, great. Thanks so much for coming on and, giving us your insight on branding success. So, folks, the book is Branding Queens by Kim Derrick Rozdeba, R-O-Z, R-O-Z.
Oh, it's
DEBA.com. And I'm sure it's going to be a great read and very inspirational for all you folks out there, that you can start with nothing and make it. So thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you, Tom. I really enjoyed this.
Okie dokie, folks. We will catch you all in the next episode. See you later.